A dealership in the Midwest quietly told a customer this summer to hold off on signing paperwork, not because the SUV in front of him was bad, because something better was 8 months away. That's the kind of advice most salespeople never give, and it's the kind of advice that can save you thousands of dollars, or cost you thousands if you ignore it. Over the next few minutes, you're going to see 7 SUVs landing in 2027 that are already rewriting what buyers expect. One has quietly stacked over 150,000 reservations before a single unit has been built. One just lost a feature that used to define it, and one might be the smartest family SUV redesign in a decade. We're counting down to the one vehicle worth waiting for the most, so let's start with number 7. Number 7. The 2027 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Here's something most Grand Cherokee shoppers won't find out until they're already standing on the dealership lot. The plug-in hybrid is gone. Stellantis has pulled the 4xe system from the entire Jeep lineup, which means the 2027 Grand Cherokee arrives as a purely gas-powered SUV for the first time in years. No 40-mile electric-only range, no plug, just a Pentastar V6, or, if you want more punch, an available turbocharged 4-cylinder. That might sound like a step backward, but talk to a mechanic who spent years around 4xe owners and you'll hear a more complicated story. Plug-in hybrid systems bring extra battery packs, extra wiring, extra software, and extra things that can eventually fail once the warranty clock runs out. Some technicians will quietly tell you that a simpler, purely mechanical powertrain tends to age better over a 10-year ownership window, especially for owners who never plug in as often as they promised themselves they would. The standard 3.6-liter V6 makes 293 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque, numbers that translate into a smooth, quiet SUV that can tow up to 6,200 pounds, enough for a boat, a small camper, or a loaded utility trailer without breaking a sweat. This is also the year the Trailhawk trim makes its comeback, bringing genuine off-road hardware back into a lineup that had leaned harder toward comfort than capability in recent years. Industry watchers expect a sharper front fascia, slimmer LED headlights, and styling tweaks aimed at improving aerodynamics and efficiency without a full ground-up redesign. Pricing is expected to start around $42,000 for the base Laredo and climb towards $63,500 for a loaded Summit trim, putting it in direct competition with the Ford Explorer, the Toyota Grand Highlander, and 2 other SUVs you'll meet later on this very list. The weakness here is obvious. Buyers who wanted the tax incentives and quiet electric-only commuting of a plug-in hybrid now have to look elsewhere, and that's not a small group of people. But if what you actually care about is proven mechanicals, real towing capacity, and genuine trail credibility instead of a badge that says electrified, this refresh gives you all 3 without the added complexity riding shotgun. It simply won't be the right fit for every driveway, and that's exactly why it opens this list instead of closing it. There's also a quieter financial angle worth mentioning. Insurance costs on plug-in hybrids have crept upward in recent years, partly because battery repairs and specialized parts tend to be pricier than a standard alternator or fuel pump. A pure gas Grand Cherokee, by contrast, is a known quantity to insurers and independent repair shops alike, which can translate into lower premiums and cheaper out-of-warranty repairs down the road. For a family that keeps its SUVs for 8 or 9 years rather than trading in every 3, that predictability carries real weight, even if it doesn't show up on a window sticker. While the Grand Cherokee plays it safe by going back to basics, the next SUV on this list is trying something Mazda has never attempted before, and even Mazda's own engineers are still keeping most of the details close to the chest. Number 6. The 2027 Mazda CX-5 Hybrid. Consumer Reports has ranked the CX-5 near the top of the compact SUV segment for years, largely because Mazda resisted the urge to chase every trend the moment a competitor tried it. That restraint is about to end, at least partially. The third-generation CX-5 is finally getting a hybrid powertrain, but it's not a Toyota system wearing a Mazda badge, which is how most of the brand's hybrids have worked in the past. This one is called Skyactiv Z, and it's engineered entirely in-house. Details are still scarce, which is honestly part of what makes this one so interesting to watch. What we do know is that Skyactiv Z will likely pair a 4-cylinder engine with 2 electric motors, in a setup expected to come standard with all-wheel drive and an elevated trim package that pushes the CX-5 further upmarket than the outgoing model ever tried to go. For a brand that's built its entire reputation on driving feel rather than chasing raw efficiency numbers, engineering a proprietary hybrid system instead of licensing someone else's technology is a genuinely significant bet, and not one every automaker in this segment has been willing to make. Here's why that matters to your wallet more than a spec sheet ever could. A properly engineered hybrid crossover can shave real meaningful money off your fuel budget every single month, especially for commuters logging highway miles 5 days a week for years on end. If Mazda's engineers get the tuning right, owners could see noticeably better efficiency without sacrificing the sharp, engaging handling the CX-5 has always been known for, something that hasn't always held true for hybrid crossovers built by other brands that seem to treat efficiency and driving feel as an either-or proposition. The obvious risk is that this is a brand new powertrain from a manufacturer that's never built one quite like it. First-year hybrid systems from established players have occasionally needed a generation or two on the market to iron out software glitches, cooling issues, and long-term durability questions that only show up after tens of thousands of real-world miles. Until owners log those miles and Consumer Reports and J.D. Power start collecting complaint data, that's a gamble buyers should walk into with their eyes open. There's a bigger market story hiding behind this launch, too. The compact SUV segment is the single most competitive corner of the American car market, packed with the RAV4 Hybrid, the CR-V Hybrid, and a growing list of rivals that have already proven their hybrid systems over multiple model years. Mazda has historically sold on emotion and driving feel rather than spec sheet efficiency, which has occasionally cost the brand sales among buyers who cross-shop purely on fuel economy. A well-executed in-house hybrid could finally let Mazda compete on both fronts at once, rather than asking loyal buyers to choose between how a vehicle drives and how much it costs to fuel. That uncertainty is a small price of admission compared to what's already happening over at Subaru, where a completely different kind of surprise has been quietly unfolding on the road for over a year. Number 5. The 2027 Subaru Trailseeker. Most buyers still picture Subaru as the brand that sells gas-powered wagons to hikers and dog owners, and honestly, that reputation isn't wrong, but the Trailseeker is quietly upending that assumption in a way almost nobody outside the industry saw coming. After launching fresh for the 2026 model year, it returns for 2027 as a carryover model, but don't mistake carryover for unremarkable. This is officially the quickest production Subaru ever sold in the United States, full stop. A dual-motor all-wheel drive setup delivers a system peak of 375 horsepower, enough to hit 60 miles per hour in roughly 4.4 seconds according to the manufacturer. That's supercar-adjacent acceleration wrapped inside a practical family crossover riding on 8.5 inches of ground clearance, with Subaru's familiar off-road drive modes built right in, including a transparent hood camera view that shows drivers exactly what's under the front tires while crawling over rocks or navigating a rutted trail. The 74.7 kilowatt-hour battery returns up to 281 miles of range on the premium trim, and DC fast charging can take the pack from 10 to 80% in roughly 28 minutes under ideal conditions. That's not class-leading, and independent testers have noted the range feels merely adequate rather than genuinely impressive given how large the battery pack actually is. A fair criticism, and one Subaru will almost certainly need to address in a future update or refresh. Still, for a first-generation EV engineered to survive snow, mud, and long Midwestern winters, adequate range paired with genuine provable trail capability is a combination few direct rivals currently offer at this price point. There's also the closely related Uncharted, Subaru's smaller EV sibling, offering buyers either a 221 horsepower single motor with front-wheel drive or a 338 horsepower dual-motor all-wheel drive setup for those who want more grip and more punch. Between the two models, Subaru now has a genuine electric answer for buyers who assumed for years that the brand would never build an EV worth taking seriously. Long-term owners who've made the jump from a gas-powered Outback report that the transition feels far less jarring than switching to an unfamiliar EV brand, largely because Subaru kept the driving position, the boxy visibility, and the outdoorsy design language intact. That familiarity matters more than it sounds, especially for buyers who've spent a decade trusting the brand's all-weather reputation and don't want to gamble that reputation on a completely unfamiliar EV startup. Resale experts also note that Subaru's loyal customer base tends to hold on to vehicles longer and shop within the brand when it's time to upgrade, a pattern that could help the Trailseeker retain value better than EVs from brands with less brand loyalty. But if the Trailseeker proves Subaru can build a genuinely quick, genuinely capable EV, the next SUV on this list proves an entire nameplate can be reborn from scratch practically overnight, and it's doing it with a 3-row family redesign nobody expected to arrive this fast. Number 4. The 2027 Kia Telluride. Starting off our list at number 7 is the redesigned 2027 Kia Seltos, unveiled at the New York International Auto Show alongside Kia's new EV3 electric model. This subcompact SUV is expected in dealerships by June, going up against a genuinely crowded field of small SUV competitors including the Chevrolet Trax, Honda HR-V, Mazda CX-30, Nissan Kicks, Toyota Corolla Cross, and Volkswagen Taos, a segment where fresh, meaningfully different styling can make an enormous difference in showroom traffic. What makes this redesign genuinely worth waiting for is the styling direction Kia has taken with it. According to Kia's own announcement, the new Seltos borrows heavily from the design language of the larger, extremely popular Telluride, giving this entry-level SUV a much bolder, more substantial road presence than the outgoing model ever had. For buyers who love the Telluride's look but can't justify the price or size of a full 3-row SUV, this redesigned Seltos essentially brings that same design DNA down to a genuinely affordable, compact footprint, letting shoppers on a tighter budget buy into a similar aesthetic without stretching their finances into a considerably larger and more expensive vehicle. The bigger news, though, is under the hood. Alongside the standard gas-powered version, Kia has confirmed a hybrid Seltos is arriving later in the year, featuring front or all-wheel drive, with the all-wheel drive hybrid specifically using an electric rear axle rather than a traditional mechanical drive shaft, running the length of the vehicle. That's a genuinely modern approach to hybrid all-wheel drive that most competitors in this specific price segment don't currently offer at all, since electric rear axle setups have historically been reserved for pricier vehicles higher up in a manufacturer's lineup. Kia has also been notably tight-lipped about final pricing, stating only that figures will be announced closer to the actual sales date, which is a common strategy manufacturers use specifically to keep pricing competitive against rivals right up until launch, rather than tipping their hand months in advance and giving competitors time to react. Combine class-leading styling inspiration with a genuinely innovative hybrid powertrain, and this redesigned Seltos is shaping up to be a serious disruptor in the budget subcompact SUV space, exactly the segment where most manufacturers tend to play it safe with incremental updates rather than genuinely innovate on both design and mechanical layout at the same time. Number 3. The 2027 Jeep Cherokee Trailhawk Hybrid. When Jeep brought the Cherokee back for 2026 as an all-new hybrid-only SUV, something was conspicuously missing: a proper Trailhawk. Enthusiasts noticed immediately, and forums lit up with the same question over and over. The redesigned Cherokee, internally known as the KM generation, was clearly engineered around comfort and efficiency first, leaving off-road purists waiting for the variant that could actually earn the trail-rated badge Jeep fans take seriously. That wait finally ends with the 2027 model year. The standard hybrid setup carries over largely unchanged: a turbocharged 1.6-liter 4-cylinder paired with a small battery pack and 2 electric motors, producing 210 horsepower and an EPA-rated 37 miles per gallon combined. In real-world mixed driving, some testers have actually beaten that official number, reporting closer to 41 miles per gallon during a mix of city and highway driving. For context, that kind of efficiency can mean well over 500 miles between fill-ups, a genuine advantage for road trip families who despise stopping for gas every few hours on a long drive. The new Trailhawk trim finally adds what the standard Cherokee has always lacked: available all-terrain tires, a blacked-out front bumper, red tow hooks, and improved ground clearance, along with better approach and departure angles for tackling uneven terrain. It's expected to arrive at dealerships this fall, with rumored pricing starting around $49,590. Every Cherokee comes with standard all-wheel drive, though it runs in front-wheel drive during normal conditions purely to save fuel, only sending power rearward through a single-speed transfer case the moment traction actually demands it. Practicality hasn't been sacrificed in the pursuit of efficiency either. The Cherokee offers a competitive 33.6 cubic feet of cargo room behind the rear seats, expanding to 68.3 cubic feet with those seats folded flat, numbers that hold up well against other compact and even some mid-size crossovers. one that Jeep positioned deliberately between traditional compact and midsize categories rather than squarely inside either one. If efficiency and off-road capability can coexist this well inside a compact SUV, just wait until you see what happens when a legacy luxury brand throws its full engineering budget at building a three-row flagship from a completely blank sheet of paper. Number 2. The 2027 Audi Q9 and SQ9. Audi has never had a true full-size three-row SUV to compete head-to-head with the BMW X7, the Cadillac Escalade, or the Mercedes-Benz GLS. That gap in the lineup finally closes with the Q9, and Audi didn't build it halfway. The standard Q9 uses a twin-turbocharged 2.9-liter V6 making 429 horsepower, while the performance-focused SQ9 steps up to a twin-turbo 4.0-liter V8 rated at a genuinely serious 591 horsepower. Both pair with an 8-speed automatic transmission and standard all-wheel drive, no exceptions and no lower trims left guessing. An adaptive air suspension comes standard across the entire lineup, with all-wheel steering offered as an option, a detail that matters enormously in a vehicle this large, since it effectively shrinks the turning radius when maneuvering through a crowded parking garage or backing out of a tight suburban driveway. Adaptive headlights continuously adjust their beam pattern to avoid blinding oncoming drivers, a small feature that makes a real, noticeable difference on unlit rural highways after dark. Inside, Audi is carrying over the same layout debuting on the closely related 2027 Q7, double-width driver gauges, a central infotainment screen, and a third screen dedicated entirely to the front passenger. Wood trim and understated chrome accents keep the cabin feeling more like a private lounge than a typical three-row family hauler, and every door can be operated using physical buttons, the central touchscreen, or Audi's own smartphone app, depending on what feels most natural in the moment. The Q9 also introduces the next step in Audi's partially automated driving technology, a genuine first for the brand's entire lineup. Here's the honest weakness, and it's one worth taking seriously before you sign anything. This is an entirely new nameplate with zero history behind it. There's no long-term reliability data, no resale value trends, and no established owner community to lean on the way you could with an established rival. Buyers stepping into a brand new three-row Audi are essentially early adopters, paying a genuine luxury premium to be first in line. History suggests German luxury SUVs can be wonderful to drive and expensive to maintain the moment the factory warranty runs out, so this is one where a little patience, waiting even a single model year for early reliability data to surface, could genuinely pay off in the long run. Families cross-shopping this segment tend to prioritize crash protection and rear seat comfort just as much as horsepower, and Audi is betting that its three-screen layout and available all-wheel steering will win over buyers who currently default to a Cadillac Escalade or Mercedes GLS simply out of habit. Whether the Q9 can match those established rivals on crash test ratings and long-term dependability once independent testing organizations get their hands on early production units remains one of the biggest open questions surrounding this launch, and it's one worth watching closely before committing to a large deposit. Everything you've seen so far has been an evolution of something already familiar. Number 1 is something almost nobody expected to see reborn at all, let alone this successfully. Number 1, 2027 Scout Traveler. Let's kick things off with a brand that technically didn't even exist a few years ago, and yet might end up being one of the most important launches of the decade, the Scout Traveler. If you're not familiar with the name, Scout is a revived American brand, backed by Volkswagen, bringing back the spirit of the old International Harvester Scout from the 1960s and 70s. That original Scout was a rugged, no-nonsense off-roader that built a cult following long before SUV was even a common term, and then the company that made it went under back in the mid-1980s. Now, Volkswagen is dusting off that name and pouring serious money into bringing it back for a new generation of buyers who want something that looks and feels genuinely American, genuinely rugged, and genuinely different from everything else on the road. Think boxy, upright, go-anywhere styling, but this time built for the modern era of electrification. The Traveler is the SUV half of the lineup, with a pickup sibling called the Terra rolling out alongside it, both sharing the same underlying platform and philosophy. Here's what makes this one so exciting. Scout isn't just building another electric SUV that struggles the moment you take it off the beaten path. They are targeting around 350 miles of all-electric range on the standard battery, which already puts it in serious contention with some of the best EVs on the market today. But then they added something genuinely clever, an optional onboard range-extending generator, nicknamed the Harvester as a nod to the brand's roots. With that generator running, total range jumps to roughly 500 miles between the battery and a full tank of gas. That means you get the instant torque and near-silent cabin of an electric drivetrain, but none of the panic that comes with watching your battery percentage drop while you're 40 miles from the nearest charger in the middle of nowhere. For anyone who tows a camper, hauls a boat out to a remote lake, or spends weekends deep in the backcountry where charging infrastructure simply doesn't exist yet, that hybrid of sorts approach could be a genuine game-changer. That single feature alone could make the Traveler the go-to choice for outdoor enthusiasts, overlanders, and anyone who's been eyeing an electric SUV but talked themselves out of it because of range anxiety. It's positioned to compete directly with vehicles like the Rivian R1S and the smaller Rivian R2, but with a distinctly different philosophy: heritage styling wrapped around genuinely rugged body-on-frame capability, rather than the smoother, more crossover-like approach Rivian has taken. Production is set to begin at a brand new, purpose-built facility in South Carolina, representing a massive investment and a serious statement of intent from Volkswagen. The Traveler is expected to reach customers around 2027, with pricing rumored to start somewhere in the $60,000 range, putting it up against premium electric and off-road competitors rather than budget options. Is it a gamble? Sure, every brand new nameplate from a brand new company is a gamble, and there's always a risk that a first-generation vehicle from an unproven manufacturer runs into early production headaches or software growing pains. But if Scout delivers on what they've promised, this could be the SUV that finally makes long-distance electric off-roading feel effortless, without asking buyers to compromise on range, capability, or that unmistakable rugged American character. That's why it earns the 7th spot on our list.